fix it. Sure, you've heard that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Wrong. If it ain't broke, break it. I'll say that again. If it ain't broke, break it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it is 20th century advice at its best or at its worst, whichever way you want to look at it. But the reality is, if it ain't broke, it needs to be broken, because if you're not breaking what you currently do, somebody else is. I was at a seminar recently and I learned some stuff I never knew. I never knew that Bill Gates wasn't kept awake at night by the threat of the AOLs or the Intels cannibalizing his business. What he said in the mid-1990s is he was most afraid of two guys in a garage. He was most afraid of two guys in a garage because he had no idea what they were up to. And around that time, there happened to be two guys in a garage about to disrupt the world, as Bill Gates knew it at the time, and they were Sergey Brin and Larry Page, and they were in a garage creating an algorithm which you and I now know as Google. Changed the world forever. The four most societally influential companies on the planet today are Apple and Amazon and Facebook and Google. And none of them existed 30 years ago. Crazy stuff. So the whole world has been turned on its head because a couple of guys or girls got together in a garage and started thinking outside the box. Your iPhone was first launched in September 2007. That's not that long ago. And prior to 2007, you, perhaps as I did, had a Nokia. And would you willingly go back to a Nokia today, those old phones, non-smartphones? I don't think many people would. And here's the problem. Nokia wasn't broke, so they didn't fix it. Listen to that again. Nokia wasn't broke, so Nokia didn't fix it. Who fixed it? Apple, right? The smartphone revolution fixed Nokia. And Nokia went from 85th largest company in terms of revenues in 2009 back to 415th in 2016. But it wasn't broke, so they didn't fix it. Kodak wasn't broke, so they didn't fix it. It was founded back in 1888 and became a dominant global force in terms of photographic film all through the 20th century. Nobody could touch them. It wasn't broke, so they didn't fix it. But then digital came along, and Kodak made the mistake of believing they were in the photographic film business. Their customers couldn't care less about photographic film. Their customers wanted images. They wanted photographs, the stuff that photographic film gave them. And when somebody came along with digital, all of a sudden the customer moved from photographic film to digital. And after 100 years of dominance, Kodak fell and it went into bankruptcy in 2012. And the bitter irony of Kodak's demise is that in 1975 it was Kodak themselves who invented the world's first digital camera. And what did they do with it? They hid it under wraps. And you know why they hid it under wraps? Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it was their motto. And they realized, believe it or not, the bitter irony here is they realized that digital would cannibalize their very own business in photographic film. So instead of doing something about it, they hid it. And what happened? Even though it wasn't broke, others fixed it. And the whole world went digital. And as a result, Kodak, the photographic film aspect of Kodak, was consigned to the way of the dinosaur. If it ain't broke, don't fix it is lousy advice. If it ain't broke, break it is great advice. That's 21st century advice, and you heard it here first. If it ain't broke, break it. One company that's been very successful at breaking it, even though it's not broke, is Gillette. Gillette, you know, the razor people. So Gillette, back in the day, founded in 1901, they were masters. They became dominant, globally dominant in the disposable razor market. And they're getting stronger all the time. And in 1960, they launched a product called Super Blue, which was the first silicone-treated razor blade. And in 1961, as a result of that, they had 90% market share of the double-edged razor blade market. Huge. And they had 70% of all razor blade market. Massive, right? What happened? 1962, a little cutlery company in the north of England called Wilkinson Sword decided to make razors out of stainless steel. First to do it. And they stole a march. And as a result of that, by 1963, Gillette, who had 90%, dropped by full 20% to this little upstart company. I mean, what had a cutlery company got any business making razors for? Because they saw an opportunity in the market. They were the de facto two guys in a garage and said, this thing needs to be different, and so they changed it. Gillette obviously responded and have survived the test of time, but part of the reason that Gillette has survived the test of time is their motto is, if it ain't broke, break it. And every time they launch a new product, as soon as a new Gillette product lands on the market, they employ 5 or 6 or 7 really bright individuals in the company whose task is to break it, whose task is to take that new product they've spent millions developing, millions launching, and these 6 or 7 people, bright young Turks, are tasked with breaking it, find out what's coming next. And that's why Gillette is staying ahead of the curve. So my friend, today's sage advice from Coffee with Colin is, if it ain't broke, break it. Because as sure as eggs are eggs, there's somebody out there in some physical garage or virtual garage somewhere, or in some coffee shop somewhere, and they've got your business, your product, your service in their crosshairs, and they're working day and night to break it for you. Remember what Bill Gates said? The only thing he was afraid of was 2 guys in a garage. Sleep well. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colin. I hope and trust as ever you got something from it. It's really important that you consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week. And then equally as importantly, come back next week and we'll share another coffee together, and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. Between now and then, get some great coffee, get some fresh air, get some R&R. If you spend too much time with people, I recommend you take some time alone. Conversely, if you spend too much time alone, I recommend you go out and meet some people. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organised for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count. If it ain't broke, break it. And I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colin. Slán. I love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.